Let me paint a picture. Okay. You're on, I believe this was the Detroit Lions. And you're at your locker, it says Ness at the top with your number. And you got a buddy of yours with the last name Canales sitting right next to you. Well, now we're in the situation where he's a head coach and you were on a podcast talking about him being a head coach. Although the lockers aren't right next to each other like they were back in 2014 or whenever it was. They're right next to each other right now, Nate. So if Dave Canales is right now next to you, what is something you would tell him going into the 2024 NFL season?
Number one, wish him the best and just let him know how proud I am of him. But going into the season, um, take everything that you take the experience of last season and make sure that's the fuel for you going into this season. That means you coach up Bryce Young to be the best he can be because you guys invested a number one overall draft pick on him and you get the pieces around him. This young man, Bryce Young, has talent, but he has to have the necessary things and necessary, tools and intangibles for him to be successful. So put him in a place of success so you can actually put yourself in a place of success and build off of it. Don't get too high, don't get too low. Stay even keel and just, again, every week look to get better. Don't be complacent in anything. And, that's what you can't be as a coach, as a player, professionally. And you can never allow yourself to get complacent and feel that everything is all peaches and cream and apples and oranges. You have to feel uncomfortable because when you feel uncomfortable, you pull the best out of you. So that's the level and the mindset that you have to have. Be uncomfortable. Even if you feel comfortable with I don't know what. Even if you just now won a Lombardi trophy. I'm now speaking hypothetically. If you want a Lombardi trophy, Andy Reid has won the last two. But I know he still has this mantra of, again, okay, I'm uncomfortable. I have to win. I have to do this and that. That's the mentality that you have, which allows you to never, again, be complacent and be comfortable where you're at. It's always going to have you reaching it for more.
And we have talked about this before. In an uncomfortable setting, that's where we grow best.
That's that best.
And I've told you this about Alabama quarterbacks, and especially Bryce Young going into last season. They're spoiled. They've been given everything they have. They have one of the best O-lines in the country. They don't have to do anything but sit back there and pass, throw the football, do what Nick Saban tells them to do. And now you go to the NFL with the same mindset. I'm comfortable. I got the best O-line in the country. I'm going to listen to what Nick Saban tells me to do. I'm now the number one overall draft pick, sit behind a Carolina Panthers O-line. I got this. What does Bryce Young do? 2,877 yards passing, a 59.8% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. A historically bad rookie campaign for a number one overall drafted quarterback. And it was because of why? The mindset. Bryce Young came in thinking, I'm at Bama. I'm the best quarterback. I won a Heisman. I'm in a comfortable situation. The team has given me all the eggs in my basket. Only thing I have to do is not drop them. That's easy, right? I just got to carry it. It's right here. I got to carry my basket. I don't drop the eggs. I'm good. It looked like you dropped the eggs, Bryce, but it's not your fault. The place around you was bad. The situation around you was bad. They did not build in Carolina like they did in Chicago. They did not build in Carolina like they did in Indianapolis, like they did in Washington, with all of their number one, number two overall draft picks. The situation's bad for Bryce Young. And although I like to talk bad about Alabama quarterbacks because they're giving everything, they go to the NFL, not giving everything, and they do bad because they're not used to it. They got to work a little bit harder. Let's talk about some of the acquisitions the Panthers have made. Going in the 24 season, what they've drafted, what they've gotten into the free agency. They traded a 6th-round pick, cornerback Dante Jackson, to the Steelers for Deontay Johnson in the 7th. So they got a wide receiver for Bryce Young, along with Adam Thielen. Now, Adam Thielen had over 1,000 yards receiving last year. Over a third of Bryce Young's yards was going to their veteran wide receiver, who the Vikings thought didn't have much gas in the tank left for him. They had to get rid of him. He was costing too much money, and he's old, right? He don't have much left in his tank. He's got over 200,000 miles. He can't run anymore. Well, the Panthers, they took that 200,000 miles off Facebook Marketplace, spent a couple grand on it, and they made it their own. And he was their own. He racked up over 1,000 receiving yards. Now, they got a little bit of O-line help. They got Robert Hunt from the Dolphins, signed him to a 4 or 5 year deal. They're going to help Bryce Young with the interior. Maybe do a couple tush pushes. I wouldn't mind to see Bryce Young do a couple tush pushes. That's a little boy. Me and Bryce Young the same height. Me and Bryce Young are the same height. We both. I could see him getting pushed and he might get pushed 5 yards on a tush push. Then they got Jadeveon Clowney on the defensive side. Now Hold up. I'm excited. I'm excited about this one because the Ravens took a chance on him last year. Didn't think Jadeveon Clowney had anything left in him. He's done. He had an incentive to where if he got at least 9.5 sacks, it gave him an extra couple $1 million. And guess what? With that incentive in front of him like a carrot on a stick, he got it. He got that extra money. And what do the Panthers do? Which is awful. They did this terrible thing. Traded Brian Burns for a 2nd-round pick. They should have kept him. They had money. They should have kept him. Awful. That was awful in my opinion. But you got Jadeveon Clowney, who's not as good, but somebody that can kind of feel that pass rush you had in Brian Burns. Now you got that. But let's look at the draft. You trade up in the 1st round because you don't have 1st-round draft pick. You traded it to get Bryce Young. Okay. Now you get Xavier Legette, Carolina boy. He's from South Carolina. Corn-fed Carolina boy. Talks a little country, has a country twang to him. I love him.
Understand him.
You can barely understand him, but I love him. I hope he does well. I might buy a Legette jersey. No, I won't. I won't buy a Panthers jersey. But I like him. Now, you get Jonathan Brooks. He's injured. He falls to the 2nd round. Supposed to be one of probably the first drafted running back. But you take a chance on him. You draft him in the 2nd round. You got Chuba Hubbard still, who kind of showed up a little bit when Bryce Young didn't last year. But now you have Jonathan Brooks, who's now on your PUP list. Okay? You got a couple weeks without Jonathan Brooks, maybe half a season. I don't know the timeline there. But when Jonathan Brooks comes back, you now have somebody that you can say, hey, we want to feed him the ball, Bryce, because we do not want the eggs in your basket anymore.
Exactly.
We have your basket right here, but we also have Jonathan Brooks' basket. We have Deontay Johnson's basket. We have Adam Thielen's basket. We now need to share the eggs in everyone else's baskets. And when we can do that, all the pressure is not on you. Your basket doesn't break. You don't drop your basket. It's not too heavy for you. We now have perfectly, I use that loosely, delegated our eggs in each of these people's baskets so that they can do what they're supposed to do on our offense, on our defense, so that the Carolina Panthers can go back to being whatever the Carolina Panthers were. They've made more Super Bowls than the Saints. I'll give them that. But they ain't won any. And
Saints won.
Saints did win. We're 100% in the Super Bowl, baby. But only been to one. But now you have a Panthers team that I know this doesn't mean much. Went 1-2 in the preseason. Bryce Young looked a little better this preseason. He ended up throwing for 70 yards in a tutty, but didn't play that much, of course, because he's a starting quarterback. Now you have the Panthers, new head coach, a new offseason. Dave Canales put in some work for this Panthers team. He put in some work. And I know you know his work ethic better than anybody else. because you were there with him. Tell me a little bit about how he was as a player and how it has translated to as a coach now in Carolina.
Well, I can't tell you really much about him as a player, but as a coach, Nemo, you want to say hi? As a coach, he was your young, energetic, bright-eyed coach that just wanted the best for his players. He wanted the best, and he wanted to put his players in position to succeed, not just on the field, but off the field. Most importantly, he wanted them to represent themselves with class and dignity, and he wanted, again, to be the best that he could be. I think the thing about what Dave is at adapting and just changing and being able to be a chameleon and adapt to the changes of the game. And each year the game is changing. Um, he speaks the lingo that a lot of these young guys speak now. You know, he can he can understand how they're feeling and whatnot, and just really help them as far as the maturation process, the maturity process, and understanding the dynamic of the game and what it takes to be a professional and a pro. Um, and with Bryce, I think Bryce is in a great position because he has a quarterback coach, and you know Dave was a hell of a coach. He actually really helped Baker Mayfield. He helped Baker Mayfield really turn, you know, the turnaround, you know, do a complete 180 in his career when the word was out in regards to Baker Mayfield and his skill set and how he was a subpar to mediocre quarterback. And the Cleveland Browns had wasted the number one overall pick on somebody that, again, middle tier quarterback. Now you put him in Tampa Bay with with Coach Bowles, my mentor, a man that I again love and respect and just appreciate and I owe so much to. And you get him with Dave Canales and what they do, they rewrite his story. You see a lot of fight and spunk with Baker Mayfield. If I'm not mistaken, they won a playoff game with Baker Mayfield. You know, so you know that right there in itself, if he can do that with Baker Mayfield, he can do that with Bryce Young. And Bryce Young has so much. He has like you know his ceiling is so high, so much arm talent. All he needs help with the mechanics of the game, acclimating himself to a new system, and just again reading his keys, going through his progressions, and not trying to put everything, you know, not trying to go for a 70-yard bomb every play, taking what the defense gives you and understanding the chess match of the game.
And I agree because Dave Canales saw something, and I'm almost certain he was one of the reasons probably Baker Mayfield went to Tampa. He saw something in Baker that he could say, okay, I'm going to pick from that and use it to help him. And so I feel like after seeing Baker win a playoff game in Cleveland after how many years they hadn't made the playoffs, like he took them to the playoffs. He took them to the promised land after being rejected for so long, being told, hey, you're not built for this. You're not made for this. What did Baker Mayfield do? I love Baker Mayfield. He is the epitome of football. This man was a walk-on, went into freaking Oklahoma as a walk-on. Oh my gosh, the story is just amazing. Won Heisman's. He was a Heisman finalist every year he started at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It was crazy. He is the epitome of football. There is nobody like Baker Mayfield. There's nobody like his story. They made a rule because of Baker Mayfield. There is a Baker Mayfield rule in
What's
college
that?
football now because now when someone he was at Texas Tech, the rule is people that transfer have to sit out a year, right? They made a rule for Baker Mayfield that because you are a walk-on, now they didn't read the fine print. The fine print says you have to sit out a year if you transfer, if you are on scholarship from your previous school. Baker was a walk-on. They made a rule that now, well, not now, you know, transfer portal and stuff. Then, before NIL, transfer portal stuff, players that were walk-ons could transfer and not have to suffer that year of sitting out. And when Baker went to Oklahoma, that was it. He went to the Browns. That was it. Now he's at Tampa. And I hate to talk about the NFC South like this, not talk about my Saints. But now he's at Tampa. Dave Canales saw something, and he's going to pick the cherry, the apple from Baker Mayfield, take a bite out of it, and see what type of apple it is. That's what he's doing, Bryce Young. He's taking the apple out the Bryce Young tree, taking a bite of it. Ooh, that's red delicious. Well, how in the world do I perfectly take the seeds out of this apple and plant another tree that makes me red delicious? He's going to figure out with Bryce Young. I don't like talking bad about players because they all do better than me. But obviously, we got to do something to get a little content in here. I'm not too keen on Alabama quarterbacks. I never have been. I like Jalen Milroe, but he's different. He's a different guy than all these past Alabama quarterbacks we've seen. Dave Canales might pick from the right tree this time, like he did with Baker. He's going to pick from the right tree. He's not going to create gravity. He's not going to see if an apple falls from it. He's going to take a bite out of it. See how it tastes. Look at the seeds. Plant the seeds. If the tree grows back the way the first tree did, you know you have a good quarterback. If it doesn't, Carolina goes to plan B. And it's sad that a first overall pick, that should be your man. But when it's not, you got to resort back. And what is Dave Canales going to do when plan A doesn't work? That's when you know, as a team, you've got a good head coach. Because he doesn't jump ship when plan A goes bad. He has a second plan in place to make sure the Carolina Panthers are taken care of. Now, I'm all for the Carolina Panthers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Atlanta Falcons getting taken care of, as long as they are all three worse than the New Orleans Saints.
What y'all gonna do this year? What y'all gonna
We're going to see, Nate. We are going to see. Derek Carr is going to throw for 4,000 yards this year with Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and 12 other undrafted free agent wide receivers. That's a story for another time. They're going the Drew Brees route when it comes to receivers. And that's a story for another breakdown.